Hello and welcome back to another episode of the GDM Playbook podcast. Today's guest is Maddie Jones, founder of Talent X. Maddie has spent her life in one of the most important yet underappreciated growth levers in any fast growth company, talent acquisition. Not just filling roles, but designing teams that actually execute, teams that scale, and teams that win. She works with founders and GTM leaders at some of the fastest growing companies, helping them avoid the costly hiring mistakes that quietly kill momentum. In this conversation, we're going to break down her unique end-to-end approach to recruiting, discover exactly how to source and identify top talent, and how those decisions shape your go-to-market success. Because no GTM strategy succeeds if your team can't execute. Maddie, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for having me. It's very exciting to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on board because I truly believe that recruiting is one of the most important factors when it comes to GTM success. And I believe you've got one of the best approaches that I've seen when it comes to sourcing and recruiting top talent. So I'm keen for myself, but also our audience to be able to hear and learn from you today.
Thank you very much. That's such a lovely, lovely intro, and I'm very excited to share everything. I've got so much to say on the topic, so I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, let's dive in. I'd love to start with your personal journey. You've built a career around finding and placing top talent. If you can just walk us through what your personal journey into recruiting was like, and what were the issues that you saw within the recruiting industry that triggered you to launch Talent X?
You're going to love this. My story is very non-traditional. So my background is actually, I was a professional skier for 11 years, snow skier. I did slope style, like tricks and flips and rails. And
Will you be excited that the Winter Olympics is coming up?
Very excited. I know several people that are competing in it. Yeah, it's that was my life for like 11 years. So I even trained with the Australian team at a certain point. So a very non-traditional pathway into what I do now. Actually, while I'm the director and I'm the MD, my sister Marnie is actually our founder, and she is a business consultant by trade. So when I finished school, I went into skiing. When she finished school, she went straight into actually business consulting. She got like a traineeship at a consulting firm, and by the age of like 19, she was consulting companies, and her career is phenomenal. She's a really impressive person, and so she was always up against the problem of people and staffing, because she dealt with MDs, founders, managers all the time, and if anyone has ever owned a business, they're going to know that hires people. You'll know how hard that aspect of business is. And it's probably where you spend the majority of your time, and upset and emotional effort is in the people part. And so because of that, there's two ways that you can look at hiring. You can look at it from like recruiters and using an external agency to do that, but it's also as an internal function. And she found both of those pathways to be very, very flawed. And that's kind of when Talent X was born, out of us trying to create a solution for that. And it just so happened that I was stopping skiing, and she's my sister, but I love her despite that. And she's phenomenal. And I just wanted to come and work with her to build that. And so the whole time she's continued her consulting, and I built Talent X. And it was basically as a solution for the problems of hiring and recruitment.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I've got two daughters, and I would love for them to eventually start a business together. And that would be the dream. So yeah,
that would be it. Look, I have a third sister, and she's very entrepreneurial as well. And she actually works with my mother, and they have two businesses together. So it's mum and my other sister, and Marnie and myself. And it definitely takes a certain balance of yin and yang in personalities to get it done. But I hope well.
It's fantastic. And why do you believe like recruiting is so critical? And how do you think it directly influences the success of a go-to-market strategy?
I think that people, like, your business is nothing without the people, and your people are an extension of you as a founder or as a director. And if you don't have, it's the wrong team. You can't get anywhere with the wrong team. So it's almost the be all and end all. You can have the best service in the world, and if your team can't deliver it to the standard that you need, then it doesn't matter. It's like it's kind of the backbone of everything, of every organization. And people, I think, are far too flippant about it. I think that the best gift you can give to yourself as a business owner, as a founder, whatever, is your team. get your team right, and everything else will fall into line. I think it's like the most critical part of a go-to-market for sure.
Absolutely. And I guess if you like look back across the companies that you've worked with, what were some of those hiring mistakes that you see repeated most often, especially when it comes to making or startup companies making their first senior GTM hire?
Okay. If I had to boil it down into one thing, I have so many different aspects I can talk to, but the one critical mistake that I think is committed by most people, including recruiters and internal hiring, is that we think that knowledge and experience equals performance. We think that what is on a CV and where a candidate has worked and the degree that a candidate has done will equal they will be good at the job. And that's the problem. People see they worked at XYZ company or they have XYZ degree. They're going to be great at the job. And then you put them in the role and they're not. And you're like, what is missing? It's not knowledge and experience is the background of the candidate, what's on their CV, what they studied at university. And that is all relevant sometimes to a role. But what's most important is the aptitude and the ability and the drive to push through barriers to achieve targets and to get stuff done. And you need to pull those two things apart and screen for them separately. And that is not what is done. Most people are judging a candidate by a CV, and yet anybody that has hired teams will have experiences of hiring somebody who had the best CV and then them being terrible at the job, or conversely, hiring someone without much experience or knowledge or a certain degree, but then them being brilliant. And that really resonates with a lot of business owners because they themselves are usually a product of that thing. A lot of business owners go into business. They've never run a business before. And what made them successful is that ability to push through barriers, to learn the things that they don't know and to figure it out and to make it go right and stay the course. And that is distinctly different from the knowledge. Marnie actually has a really brilliant anecdote of when she was consulting companies. She had a company that came to them and they were hiring a GM, and they found this guy and he was Harvard trained, and they had done. Their consulting firm had done so much work with this business. They had taken them from losing $1 million every year to making $1 million every year, taken them from so far in the red and brought them into the black. And they were doing really, really well. They then brought on this GM, and he'd studied at Harvard. And the first thing that this guy did, when they were obviously very enamored by that, oh, wow, Harvard, oh, we get a Harvard GM, very enamored by that. The first thing the guy did was pull out everything that the consulting firm had put in that had taken them from the loss into being profitable. The first thing he did, took it all out. They'd spent a year and however much in consulting fees to get the business from there to there. And then the guy came in, took everything out, and within a year, they were back to losing $1 million and come straight back to the consulting firm, say, hey, we've got to pay to put it all back in. And they obviously fired him. And that is just a good example. I'm not saying people who go to Harvard will drive a company into the ground, by the way. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying this candidate specifically was very exciting to them from a knowledge perspective, but his performance was abysmal. So you've got to really separate these things, and you can sometimes turn away great talent because you don't think they have the right knowledge or experience, or you're not impressed by their CV. But really you need a process that allows you to dig past those facade things or those shiny things that you think make a candidate great to really find what is there. And most GMs or directors, they are that. They're the ones that started from the bottom and worked all the way up. They're my favorite people to meet. So they're my GM, but they started in my warehouse and they've just done every role in the business and they've made themselves a GM. And they're my favorite people to talk to.
Yeah, it's so true. It's, a lot of people gravitate towards, just the hard skills on paper versus, those other peripheral skills and experience that you mentioned. Like, you mentioned that your background's in professional sport. And so if you looked at, say, your CV and you're like, professional athlete, it's like, well, you go, well, might not have anything to do with a specific role. However, you would have, you've learned, how to set goals, how to push, how to get outside your comfort zone, how to persist, have that tenacity, all of those things, how the understanding of the mindset and the psychology of a high performer, all of those things that typically won't get picked up on a traditional screen of a resume. And I'm really keen to dive into some of those ways that you kind of extract that later on in this discussion, and some of the ways that you assess a candidate, not just on the hard skills, but also those soft skills that will make them perform. And you also mentioned around, someone that, on paper might have worked for a well-known brand, successful company, but they may have just inherited like the momentum of that company.
Or been terrible.
Yeah.
Or been terrible and been fired and not put that on their CV. You don't know. We as humans use these other things to make decisions about candidates. Oh, she's a skier, so her background is she'd just be a ski bum. She's not going to be any good. Or her background is she's a professional athlete, so she's going to be really driven and she's going to push through. You don't know that. You don't know that without digging. You're making assumptions. So it's like you've got to not do that. And that's why you need a process that allows you to dig and get evidence about someone so that you are not using things like that to make decisions. We often compare candidates. Oh, Mark seems great. He reminds me of Bob. Remember Bob? Bob was awesome. Let's hire Mark. Or Mark reminds me of Bob and Bob wasn't good, so let's not hire Mark. And I'm like, but Mark isn't Bob. So why are we... It's bizarre. Even clients wanting to meet when you do rounds of hiring and people will want to meet like 5 people to compare. And I'm like, even that, when you really start to pull it apart, I'm like, comparing candidates doesn't do anything because candidate A is not worse if you meet candidate B and candidate B is amazing. Candidate A is still candidate A. And I could send you candidate B and candidate B is terrible. Candidate A better? No. Candidate A is candidate A. So you've got to really be pragmatic in your hiring. It's like, what am I using to make the decisions about the person in front of me? And therein is the process and therein is what I do.
Now, before sourcing even starts, everything hinges on role clarity. How do you work with founders and hiring managers to define what they actually need versus what they think they need?
That's a really good question. This is your starting point, setting your North Star of where it is that you're going. Most people just look at a job as a job description. They go, oh, what will this person do? And someone will go, I'll write a JD. And they write out a list of duties and they go, cool, this is what we need. And then by default, you go, okay, then they need experience in those JD things. What you need to do is expand that out and go, well, what is the context of this role? What is the impact this person can make? What are the challenges of the role? Is the role really organized and are we really structured and we have heaps of processes, or is it really disorganized and we need someone that loves either setting them up or someone that's really agile and can roll with the punches and changing priorities all the time? What are the emotional or mental kind of necessities of the role? And then the context of your team as well, because you might have a team that's really blunt. You guys might be like, we swear and we love to joke and we love to rip on each other and that's our culture. So if you got someone that's sensitive and is like, I don't want you to make fun of me and I don't think that that's very funny, then that's not a right or wrong personality. It's just not a fit for the context of the team. So when you think about, I think every role, it sounds so lame, but it is true. I think of every role like a puzzle piece. Like you could have 2 businesses right next to each other and they both need an accounts manager and they could both be trades-based businesses, have really similar clients, be the same size team and the same size revenue, but the roles would still be completely different because the owners are different, the goals are different, the culture is different, the impact is different, the responsibilities are different. Like you've got to really think about what it is that is special and unique about your role and your business, and then think of the person that will be applying for the job in terms of an archetype, not the CV, but an archetype type person. To give you an example, I had a client that was a venture capitalist, very, very busy man. He's Middle Eastern, so he's pretty blunt and he moves fast and he calls it as it is, but he'll also tell you to work on one thing and then the next week that's changed. So you've got to, we're not on that anymore. We've got to do the next thing. It's very like fast paced. And so you need someone very agile. And he'd had 3 executive assistants in 18 months quit because they couldn't handle that pressure. He came to us and we wrote in our job ad. So from doing our role profile, going to market, how do we find this person? Not from a job description perspective, but from a mindset perspective. And we wrote in the ad, you would have to be the highest performing EA in all of Sydney and you want the biggest challenge you can fathom. And I'll be honest with you, I don't even know if the role can be done because the last 3 women quit in this role in the last 18 months. And we put that in the ad. The woman that we got only applied for 1 job, and that was exactly her. She was like, I've been looking for the next big thing. I like where I am, but I know I'm capable of more, and this just sounded like a really good opportunity. She applied. She was amazing, and she ended up being the GM of one of his companies.
Yeah, it's like highlighting those, even what some people would think are like negatives. The right person will see those as positives. Yeah.
And performers love it. You yourself are a great example. Would you go for a job that's like, I want you to come be my GM, but you don't have to do anything really because we're already organized. Everything is set. We have like a little bit of growth goals, maybe like 5% year on year. We'd be happy with that. I just want you to come in and babysit the business. Would you apply for a job like that?
That sounds lovely, actually.
Or do you want to work for someone that's like, I'm a crazy founder and I want you to come and take the reins and I want to like double, but if you want to triple, go for it. A performer's like, that's what I want. That's what I want. So,
yes.
And if you think about it, all job ads, I think I mean, this is kind of how we got connected, but talking about job ads specifically are such a secret weapon because everybody writes ads that read the same. They are all the same, and all they are is the glorified job description, which, as we just discussed, focused on the thing that's kind of, while it's an important factor, it's not the factor. Like they could have all of those things and not be the right person. So finding a way to go to market and write ads that really are like a crosshair for the person that you want is such a secret weapon. And if you, all job ads being like a glorified job description and they highlight all of the things that are good. Oh, well, we have, you get bonuses and we have really good work from home flexibility. You won't have to do any overtime. And we go for a barbecue every Friday. Well, guess who's going to apply for that job?
Yeah.
Someone who wants all of the benefits. You know, and then, oh my God, we've got this really bad deadline. Could you do a couple of hours overtime? That person's going to be like, no.
Yeah, that wasn't in the job description. That wasn't on the job ad promotion billboard that I saw.
Yeah. Wouldn't you rather be like, this will be a really hard job. This might be the hardest job you've ever done. Like, you have to be ready for it. And then they get into it. It's actually like easier than it was. And they're like, oh, you know, it's like people think you can't be honest about the challenges or the sour points or whatever is difficult about the role, but actually it's really refreshing. And you also have people that are attracted to whatever it is you've got going on and then aren't deterred by it. So your chances of that person being a fit is higher because they're not coming into something and going, oh, well, I was sold a lemon. I was promised something that's not real. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you're going fishing and it's like you want to make sure you're throwing the right bait out there to attract the right fish that you're wanting to catch.
Exactly. It's actually marketing, which is why I don't understand. I don't want to get too into recruiter bashing, which is a terrible habit of mine, but why I struggle with how recruiters really do their job, because they will, if I'm a normal recruiter and I have a candidate, I'm not just sending it to one client. I'm sending it to like 5. They take a real shotgun approach when my head is like, but every role is a puzzle piece, as lame as it sounds. Every role is a puzzle piece. So what's the likelihood that this candidate is right for 5 roles? Yeah. Recruiters don't dig into that. It's just the wrong way around. You're flipping it. And then you have let's say you have one great candidate. I literally just had a chat with a guy that was like, I was sent a candidate by a recruiter, but I know he went to 5 other companies in the same day. It flips it. And then all of a sudden you're like at the whim of a candidate and you've got to like beg the candidate to come work for you and choose you over someone else, when it's like, no, it should be the other way around. Candidates should be lucky to work for you and you should be able to have your pick.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Now let's transition into sourcing talent. So how do you approach finding and sourcing and attracting top tier candidates? You know, there's specific channels or strategies that you rely on the most when you're going after that, you know, that A player.
You're going to be surprised, but we fill 98% of our roles through Seek. I think people have this idea that you can't get good talent. People have these weird ideas about hiring. They think like if anybody's good, they're not going to be looking. Like you can only get good people through like a network or knowing the right person at the right time, which is absolutely not true. There is so much great talent out there. You just have to know how to find them. Like that EA example I gave you, she only applied for one job and it was our one. Good talent is looking, and they look for opportunities and they are selective. Sometimes you get candidates that have just applied for 100 roles. Sure, they don't know what they want. But people who are high performers and are good, they keep an eye on the market. So if you have a brilliant opportunity and that candidate is you better have an ad that is so exciting that it'll make them click on it and it'll make them apply, because they are out there. So you can post on LinkedIn. I personally don't like LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is very heavy on the knowledge CV. What experience and knowledge do you have, thinking that means that they're going to be great? And I also find it very expensive. And I just, it's not my preferred platform. I love Seek. It works for us. We fill 98% of our roles through that.
Yeah, interesting. So you find Seek, job ad out there, making sure that ad's appealing to the people that you're looking to try and find is the most effective over, say, headhunting and...
I'm so glad you brought up headhunting. So headhunting, again, flips the process back on its head, because we screen out 98% of people. Headhunting, you are looking at a candidate only unless you know them. Unless you know them, you've been exposed to them and you've worked with them. That's different. I almost wouldn't call that headhunting. That's just like talking to people that you know in your network. But headhunting, meaning I have seen someone on CV and they've worked for a relevant business in a very similar role. I want to talk to them. That is basing someone solely on the knowledge side, which is a very risky thing to do. But again, it puts you back at the whim of the candidate. The first thing out of the candidate's mouth will be, well, what's the money? And if you can headhunt, so you can poach someone, then that by default means you're getting someone that's poachable. What is the likelihood when we just determined that each role is like a puzzle piece, what's the likelihood that that person is the puzzle piece? It just seems like it's like door knocking in a random neighborhood to find your soulmate. What is the
Yeah.
likelihood that that would work out? It puts you at, unless you have a really, 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 really specific skill set that you need. This is where it gets more nuanced. You have a very specific skill set. I know one client recently is an engineering firm, and they did a very specific type of engineering, and they wanted to expand their service offering into this other type of engineering, and they didn't know how to do that. So they were specifically hiring someone for that skill set because they didn't have it. That's a different scenario, totally different. But generally, I don't suggest headhunting, because it's like, well, you're going to spend a lot of money. You have to convince them with money, which means they can then be poached later down the line by somebody else that will just give them more money. Plus, like, what's the likelihood really? It's also then hard to screen them, because you've approached them to then be like, okay, so can you do this personality profile? And can you tell me, like, to really start then digging and diving into it? Yeah, I think people think that there's scarcity in candidates out there. I think it's when they focus too much on the knowledge piece. Because when you think of a candidate as personality, knowledge, and performance, which is how we kind of spread it out, or within the context of the company you're hiring it into, you have the knowledge. So what have they done in the past? What's their experience? What's their degrees? You have their personality. Are they introverted, extroverted? Are they moody? Are they kind? Are they soft? Are they hard? Whatever. And then you have performance, which is, do they get done? Do they get it done?
Yeah.
And when you are headhunting someone, you're focusing on the knowledge more than other things, and that's the only one of them that's changeable.
Yeah.
If you can get someone that's got the best CV in the world. If they're not a performer, there is nothing you can do as a manager, as an owner, to make them a performer. If they are lazy, there is nothing you can do to make them not lazy. If they're sensitive, there's nothing you can do to make them not sensitive. So out of the three of them, everybody goes to market for the knowledge and the experience and the degree and the CV, when that's the only thing that you can change as a business owner. So my advice is get really clear on what you need and want from an attitude and an aptitude perspective, and be prepared to train the difference. Because it's also naive to think that you can get someone who needs no training, who can step into the shoes and start walking. Often you have to detrain them and retrain them into the way that you want to do it. So that's kind of my ethos, and why I said you don't headhunt if you can avoid it.
Yeah. Okay. And like, just say you've got 1,000 resumes come through. How do you go through that initial screening process?
Great question.
To work out who you're going to shortlist and actually call based on just looking at their resume, to determine not just what their skill base is and experience, but actually those aptitude elements that you say are so important?
That's a great question. So I actually had posted an ad last night, 5 p.m. last night. And when I checked it at 9 a.m. this morning, I had 274 applicants for that role. I knew I'd get a lot. So it's a good question. When you have very high volume, you need a way to screen them, because I don't want to judge them off CVs. This role's a good example too, because it's a work from home admin role, which is why I knew I would get 1 million applicants for it. But that specifically, I'm like, I need someone that's super accountable, is really like energetic, is a source of energy for their role. So you don't need to be constantly checked in on, chasing, following up, right? So I'm not going to get that from a CV. There's almost the knowledge requirements are like not the most important thing on this role. So looking at a CV is almost completely useless. So what I do is I will bulk send them a questionnaire. And the questionnaire that we use is specifically around, sure, your key things, what salary do you want? Where are you located? What hours can you do? Do you have a visa? Like anything like that, sure. But the important thing I'm asking them is about achievements in their past role. What were you expected to achieve? Did you have targets, quotas, KPIs? What did you achieve? How did you compare to other people on the team? Did you receive promotions, bonuses? What kind of feedback are you getting? Those kinds of questions are where performers will tell you. They've got a million things. As where some people who's not a performer, they'll say, oh, well, my boss doesn't yell at me, so I guess I'm doing a good job. And it's like performers are like, I have a list. Performers are like, we have a little game where we see who's in the top 3 every month, and I'm always in the top 3. It's between me and this one other guy, and it's usually, they have these things they think about. Even like a checkout chick at Woolies, if they're a performer, they're going to be like, well, I always want to be the fastest, so I'm always watching everybody else and making sure I'm faster, and I always want to make my bags perfectly packed. Performers think this way. They think with impacts they make in their roles, and achievements and improvements and impact. And they will, so that's how we do it. We send out a questionnaire, and then we also have a personality profile that we use, there's 2 different kinds. There's one that's around like aptitude and ability to like pick things up. Are they like kind of like an analytical thinker type thing. Can they understand instructions and take things on quickly? But the other one that we use, a lot of people use things like disc profiling, which are great, but I find they're a bit limited in that they are usually just a methodology of thinking, like, oh, they're an introvert, or they're an extrovert, or they're a creative, or they're more of an engineer's mind. Like, it's a bit limited in that regard. The one that we use will show you what you're going to see outwardly in a candidate, but most importantly, what's underneath that often won't come out until 3-6 months time. Are they going to be like sensitive? Because in an interview, a candidate will always tell you, no, I'm fine. I love feedback. I love really honest feedback. Whereas I can look at a profile and be like, they're going to hate it. They're going to hate feedback. If you give them negative feedback, like give it to them in an email so they can digest it in private. So I want to see like what's really obvious about the candidate, what's their approach to work, and what's underneath. And so I can put them through those screening steps very autonomously, very separate to being on the phone. And only then do I make a short list, and then I interview them over the phone. So that's
Gotcha.
how I
So
handle
this is all
volume.
before you've spoken to them. You've got
Before
that
I've even
resume.
spoken to them.
You send them a questionnaire. You send them a like personality
Profile.
assessment as well, profile as well.
Yeah.
And then from there, shortlist based on their responses.
That'll cut out 90%. 90%. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
That's how I hire for my team as well. I don't talk to them until they've done those steps because I don't want to waste my time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be backtracking a little bit here just to the job ad piece, because I find this such an interesting, and this is actually how
we connected.
You pulled apart our job ad, which I loved. And so I'm really keen, like, what are the red flags you see the most in job ads today? And what are some of those critical things that you put into your job ads which help you attract the right talent?
It's a great question. So some red flags that I see is way too positive. Like I said before, highlighting all of the positives and none of the negatives. You're going to attract people who want all of the positives and none of the negatives. You get what you write. That's like very, very true. So if you can figure out you should still put honey in there. It should be a balance. It depends on how many applicants you think you're going to get. If you've got a role, you like an admin role, I know I'm going to get 1 million applicants, make it a brutal ad. Then you'll get someone that's really like attracted to that. If it's something that you think you're not going to get very many, and it's like let's say a very specific knowledge requirement, so you know there's less of them out there, then you should highlight what the benefits are. But I wouldn't do it from a monetary perspective. Seek, when you go to post an ad on Seek, it'll tell you if you want 40% more applicants, you should post the salary. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but Seek will tell you that. We don't. Our ads like 400% higher performing on Seek, and we do not put the money because I don't want someone that's money motivated. So figure out what is the benefits of the role, but from a psychological perspective. So you can, if you're going to be mentor, let's say you were hiring like an EA, I'd be like, okay, you get to work directly with Mark. He's amazing. He's like this, and this is the impact you can make on his life. They're the types of things I like to talk about. I want someone that's like, you will be the difference between whether Mark sleeps at night, you know? And then you get someone that's like, that's what I want. So you want someone that thinks in that way. That's my like biggest advice, is you want to figure it out and then write it. We also write our ads in a very conversational way. I don't write, you are ... If you want, and everyone will say, okay, I want someone that's organized. I wouldn't write, you are organized. I would write something like, you are so organized that your family always double check things with you because they know that you're going to be across it. Or, you know, you want someone that is really attentive to what other people need. Let's say they're an EA. You'd be like, you are the one at Christmas time, making sure everybody has the drink, everybody's got their plate of food, and everybody has what they need. Like, not necessarily you saying you have to say that, but do you see the difference between you are organized and you are those things? I often write, like, one of my favorite angles is like an office manager, and I'll call it like Mary Poppins. And it's like, you are the type of person that predicts needs better than anyone else. Like you walk into the room and your boss is like, thank God you're here. And when you read that and you are that, you're like, what?
Yeah, it's like that's speaking directly to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had candidates say they get hit between the eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you shared before, like should be looked at like marketing, and good marketing does exactly that, where it's you're targeting your exact buying persona, sharing a pain point or a story that they're like, oh, that's the situation I face every single day, and then you inject your solution in there. So it sounds like from a recruiting perspective, the best approach is to treat it the same way.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it makes a huge difference. And it's also good because when you get on the phone and you ask the question to what made you want to apply for the role, if they go, to be honest with you, I've been applying for a lot of roles, I don't really remember this one, you're like,
Dun, dun.
Exactly. It almost like screens it out because you're like, it was so deliberately written. Whereas I'll have a candidate that's like, I loved it. You said this line and I'll give you a line. And they're like, and I said, that's me. I had one woman, she's like, I turned to my husband and showed him the ad and was like, isn't this me? And he was like, that's exactly you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's when it gets really fun.
Yeah. And you probably find you get less, time waster applicants in the batch as well, because you're not just talking up all the perks and everything.
No.
You're injecting some of those things that the wrong candidate would be put off. And so the ad does its own self-screening as well.
Exactly. You want it to attract the ones that you want and repel the ones that you don't want. Yeah, it's exactly right.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just say you've sourced your candidates, you've done your initial screen and you're now in the interviewing process of your shortlisted candidates. And I know that most interviews typically reward, confidence and storytelling. How do you design interviews that reveal how someone will actually perform in the role?
Oh, you've got such good questions. Okay, so if you only have a couple of applicants, you're probably not going to do the pre-screening steps like I did for the high volume role. So you might just initially start on the phone. But my advice is to go back to the evidence thing. Don't be blown away or enamored by a dazzling candidate, because some of them are dazzling and they say all these things and you're like, they sound so amazing. And then when you go back and you read it, I'm like, there's actually not really substance in this. Like, for example, people will ask a question like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? I hate this question because a candidate is trying job interviews and first dates. You're getting a very curated picture of someone. They're giving you a very carefully selected facade that they want you to see. So when you ask a question like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? They can tell you, oh, I'm a perfectionist. I don't delegate enough. They're going to give you some PR
I work
answer.
too hard.
Yeah,
I don't take enough breaks.
I work too hard. And he's like, they're never going to be like, I'm really useless before 12 on a Monday and after 12 on a Friday. And almost if they were that honest with you, you'd probably be impressed because you're like, they give you the same recycled answers. So I avoid questions like that. I always start with very open-ended questions. I don't like to feed. If you feed a candidate an answer, they will give you that answer. If you say this role needs somebody really organized, are you organized? They go, I'm really organized. I'm the most organized person you've ever met. And you're like, okay, cool. So if you say we're a small team and we work really hard and we play really hard, let's say, they'll go, great, I want a small team that works hard and plays hard. So I like open-ended questions. I always start with, tell me a bit about you, where you're at in your career and what it is you're looking for your next role. I don't want to give them an answer because they'll often say, well, I want a lot of structure and I want a big team. And I go, cool, this role is one of 3 people. This is not the role for you. Whereas if I had said from the beginning, this is a small team, they would have said, I love small teams.
Yeah.
So
I see that often in interviews where you hear the person interviewing where they'll say exactly that. They'll basically feed the candidate
what they want,
the answer that they want to hear, and all they have to do is basically go with it. And it's like, oh, cool, tick.
Yeah. It's a waste of your time. I had a client that said you said like the confidence thing, right? Like I had a client that hired a woman who wore red lipstick into an interview because she thought that she would be bold and confident. The girl didn't work out. It's like you got to not be dazzled by these things because you could have a brilliant candidate that is really confident, but for whatever reason, they just get super nervous in interviews and you write them off because they didn't interview that well or whatever. And then someone else could come in and absolutely smash it. I'm talking to the business owners out there. How many times have you hired that person who nailed the interview and then it wasn't good? They're going to be like, yeah, oh my God, so many times. Or how many times have you been impressed by someone that you hired that you were a little bit unsure of and they turned out to be brilliant? So you can see like the only 2 things I find that are universally done in hiring processes is everybody will look at a CV and they will conduct an interview. And those 2 things can be very limited tools because a CV is written as a sales tool. It is written to make you think that they're the best candidate. And these days you don't even know who's writing it. There's professional CV writers, recruiters change people's CVs to make them look better. You have AI that could pass your ad and their CV and make it the best thing you've ever read. And then in an interview, you can have someone that's terrible that interviews brilliantly and someone brilliantly who doesn't interview that well. So you've got to ask the right questions, which is exactly what you asked me. I skirted around the question. So the types of things I would ask is for tangible outcomes. I would say, okay, in your last role, tell me, what did you achieve? What were you targeted with? What did you achieve? So if they say, I was targeted with selling 100 pairs of shoes a month, good. What did you, and the candidates will skirt around it. So you've got to get a proper number. They'll say, yes, I had KPIs. Okay, good. What were they? And they changed. Okay, good. What were they? What were they in the last 3 months? They go, I had to sell 100 pairs of shoes a month. Good. What did you achieve? Yes, I achieved that. You got 100 pairs every month? Yes. Exactly 100? Give or take. Okay, cool. It's not reason why I say it has to be really like specific and tangible is because you want it to be reference checkable. And that is like the final part of our process. It's a little bit down the line, but you need it to be something that's reference checkable. If they tell you I streamlined a process, you go, oh my God, what an amazing candidate. They streamlined processes. I want to be like, well, what was the process?
Yeah.
And they might go, oh, it was invoicing. You go, cool. Well, how long did it take at the start? It took an hour. Okay. After your streamlined process, how long did it take? And they say, well, 55 minutes. Okay. Well, it's not a very good streamlining of a process, is it?
Yeah.
So you've got to get around these things because they say that. Candidates say stuff like that all the time. I helped with training and onboarding. I'm like, okay, but were you good at it? How do I know that you were good at your job? What are you achieving? Are you getting promotions? Are you getting bonuses? How are you comparing to everybody else? What kind of feedback does your manager give about you? Have you made improvements? Have you saved clients? Have you brought in business? Like what is it? What is your impact?
Yeah.
Because that is a candidate's value.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your viewpoint? Just say you're recruiting for a sales superstar. And you're asking them, they might be early in their career, but the last company they work with just didn't have a very good, say, product market fit, which obviously then impacted their performance, not because of their issue, but there might have been product market fit issue, or maybe the marketing team weren't generating enough leads or something else outside of their control. Are you someone who would go down the process of going, unless you've got proven results, it's too much of a risk, or are there other factors that you can consider and go, you know what?
We do 2 roles. So I will do their current or their most recent, and then I'll do the one before. So if they tell you, yeah, I've been here for 6 months, I'm doing okay, I'm getting like 70% of my target, but it's just not a market fit, like there isn't a demand, whatever it might be. I go, okay, cool, no worries, let's leave that. What about the role before that? And then I go, oh yeah, that one was a bit tricky. I came in at a really bad time, and blah, blah, blah. I go, okay, cool. What about the role before that? And then I go, oh yeah, that one was actually really hard too. There's a lot of competitors in this, but I'd be like, cool, this guy has too many reasons why he can't sell a product. So there are also bad employers out there. There are companies that don't have a good market fit. There are those things, but I would take it with a grain of salt, and you can still reference check that, because then I would ask questions like, okay, so if you're a sales guy and you're like, it's a bad market fit, blah, 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 blah. I say, cool, how many other sales reps are there? If they go, oh, there's 3 others. And I go, well, how are they going? And if they say, yeah, they all achieve their target, I would be like, well, maybe it's not the market fit, maybe it's you. But I would just keep asking questions. But I do give the candidate grace, because there are bad businesses, there are hard things to sell, there are other factors at play. But then I would do a performance check on the role before, because performers will have a history of performance.
Yeah.
But it's a good question.
And if it's someone who, let's just say they're early in their career, and let's just say they've got a background, say high performing, professional sports as an example, they did their first sales job. It's the only one they've ever done, but bad product market fit. They didn't quite get the results that was needed. Would you still see that as too risky at that point because they haven't had any proven results in that role? Or would you just still draw in those aptitude factors?
It depends. It depends on what the client needs. I would still performance check the role before, even if it wasn't sales. Because if it was something else, if it was account management, or if it was administrative, or if it was marketing, or whatever it was, remember, performance is distinctly separate to knowledge. So you could have someone that's never done the role before, and they were, let's say it was a young person and you're hiring for an admin role, and this would be their first admin role. But before that, they worked at a pool, and they were a lifeguard. I would performance check that. I would find a way to ask questions about that. They might say, okay, well, how many accidents did your kids have? None. I was like the most safety compliance person ever. Like, how many shifts were you getting? They gave me the most because I was the most consistent. I was whatever there is, you can find a way to performance check other roles. So even if it's I guess where it gets hard is when you have like something like a graduate lawyer, which we hire a lot of graduates with, actually real lawyers with really good success. I have a client that's built a very high performing firm and team of hiring a lot of really great graduates. Graduates are a great example because you can have people that have the dazzling CV, I was top of my class and I was blah, blah, but have no real life experience. So being able to dig into those and being able to use other things, maybe leading more heavily on the attitude and aptitude, the personality profile and the aptitude testing. But yeah, you want to make sure you're not getting dazzled by, because you can have like young graduates that say everything right and you're like, wow, what a little superstar. But often as well, a funny little anomaly in life is that you can have people that graduate top of their class, but they don't have the street smart or like the grit to like be a good performer. It's like it's a different thing. Do not think just because somebody graduated top of their class and they were ducks of the school means they will be a good performer. How many business owners do you know that didn't even go to uni? My sister consulted a guy that ran a huge, very successful, multi-million-dollar construction company. The man couldn't read, and she had to sit here and read him everything they were going through. The man's brilliant. So you've got to really, it's a different thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And like, where do you see as well, say, role plays and practical tasks playing a part in that interview process as well?
Yeah, absolutely. They're very important. I think there's two kind of sides I'll say to this. Number one is the testing side. So you should test their knowledge and you should test their skills as much as you can. I'm all about evidence. Do as much digging and screening and everything as you need to know as much about a candidate before you hire them. Absolutely. That's great. So scenarios and stuff like that is good. Where I go, just be careful with it, is remember that sometimes we ask candidates a question and we have a right or wrong answer in our heads. For example, if I ask the question, if I give you an order as your manager and you disagree with it, what would you do? And the candidate might say, well, you're my manager, so I would do what you tell me to do. And then you might go, well, that's the wrong answer because our culture is everybody has a voice and I would want you to tell me. And it's and you might then go, see, they're not the right person for us. And I go, that's so unfair to the candidate because you have to remember the candidate is trying to give you what you want to hear. So instinctively, natively, they might be the type that goes, well, actually, I'd want to tell you what I think, but they want the job. So they're trying to give you the answer they think that you want. So they say something that's not even how do you see how it becomes this smoke and mirrors thing? Whereas if you say to them, we have a policy here. Our policy is you tell me what you think. And that's the agreement that we set from the outset of our employment is that you tell me what you think. If you disagree with me, I want you to know I will always listen to you. Then you might have the candidate be like, that's the best thing I've ever heard because my last boss never let me say anything. So it's like you've got to walk those lines of what is the knowledge gap that is missing in this candidate and is that bridgeable? Just because they don't know how to use a certain software, that is like very, very fixable. But do they have the attitude, the aptitude, the culture fit, and the things that we really need and can't compromise on? Because if they have those things, well, of course you teach them the software.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like hiring for, say, a large, well-established company, it's a different culture, different environment than, say, like an early start, scrappy environment. What's your viewpoint around, let's just say someone on their CV, they've worked for Amazon, Google, all the big players, and you're hiring for an early stage startup. Would you say that person would be a good fit because they've seen what great looks like? Or would you say it's better to hire someone that's got more recent experience in a closer phase than that company?
I just think that human beings are so nuanced. I don't think you can ever pick up stuff like that from a CV. Like some people do. Some people go, I have clients that go, I don't want someone from a corporate background. I don't want that. And I go, okay, fine. But it depends. If you have hundreds of applicants, then you can be picky about something like that, because you can waste applicants. However, if you have less than 10, I'm like, that seems like such a silly thing because maybe they've been in the corporate life and they hate it. They're like, it's so much red tape. It's slow moving. I feel like a small cog in a massive machine. I don't feel like I'm making an impact and I don't want to go to work every day. I want to go work for a small business. And you go, but you've already made an assumption that they're a corporate mindset. But maybe it's true. I'm sure there are lots of people that transition from corporate and they're like, they can't transition. But my point is you don't know that from a CV. You do not know that from a CV. And that's my only worry with it is I go, well, what's the evidence? What evidence do you have? Because you're probably making assumptions.
Yeah, so true. And so it's not until, you do that extra step, really hear from them, hear their own personal situation and what are their drivers as well. Yeah,
which is why I'm not worried about AI coming from my job, but I see so many recruiters spouting about AI. And I'm like, a machine will never be able to determine the value of a candidate because it's a right or wrong input. That's how it's written. Is that right or is it wrong? And I'm like, that is not, you can't determine human aptitude through something like that. And you'll just I see reels all the time on Instagram of this is how you should be applying for jobs using AI. So you just have your AI talking to somebody, your AI application making machine applying for jobs that are being determined by the company's AI job making machine. It just becomes this thing where I'm like, you have to roll up your sleeves and you have to do the digging. That's the only way to know. Yeah.
Well, AI is only going to be good at being able to match those skill-based
experiences. Which is a CV. Back to the first problem.
Yeah.
Hiring would not be a problem for anybody in the world if CVs were the thing to determine somebody's value. But it doesn't, everybody knows it doesn't work.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, you mentioned before around reference checks and during the interview process, making sure you ask the right questions to be able to extract insights that you can check against a reference.
Yeah.
And, I know a lot of people, when they go into a reference check, it feels like it's more like a box ticking exercise and a bit of a waste of time. How do you approach reference checks so you're able to actually surface the truth?
Such a good question asker. Okay, so there's two things that I'll say. Number one, if you have a recruiter doing a reference check on their own candidate for you, I'll slap you through the screen. That is a terrible thing to do. That is like asking the real estate agent who is selling the house, hey, what's the foundation like? This is the best built house you've ever seen in your life. So that's the first thing, is never let a recruiter do your reference checks. The second thing is there's a few reasons why people don't tend to do reference checks.
So just on that, your customers, when it gets to reference checks,
it's different for me. I'm not
different because you're not a recruiter.
I'm the anti-recruiter. Yeah. 30% of the candidates that we take through reference checks don't make it. Because remember, back to our processes, we've gone to market, we've created a pool of candidates and we've screened them. We're trying to find all the reasons why you shouldn't hire these individual people. And my job is to protect my clients. Recruiters are working candidate side. So they have a vested interest in you buying their stock. So they will never tell you not to hire that person. They will tell them what to say, what to wear, what to do in an interview. They'll zhuzh up their CVs and they'll tell you their references are the best references I've ever heard in my life. You should hire them today. Let's sign some contracts. It's very different. What we do, I'll explain how we do it in a second. But the first thing is there's usually a few reasons why I find people don't do reference checks. Number one, they say, well, why would Mark give me somebody that would say something bad about him? So there's no point in me calling that person. Or they've fallen in love with Mark and just fingers crossed he'll be fine. Let's just sign him up and just everybody think positive that it'll be fine. Or if they do call the reference, they don't actually know what to ask that would be valuable. Like, did you like him? I guess, would you hire him again? And that's kind of the extent of the reference check. So that's the problem with reference checking, both internally and externally. The way that we do it is first we have I'm giving you all of my secret sauce, which is great.
That's what we love.
Yeah, that's what we love. I hope if you're listening, you can, all of these things you can start implementing for your own internal hiring processes. Absolutely. So we have them sign a document that says that we can contact whoever we want. So let's say Mark is working at ABC Bolts Fasteners, and he's told me that he reported to Bob, the manager, and I get him to sign a document that says I can contact whoever I want. The first thing I do is call ABC Bolts and Fasteners directly. And I say, hey, did Mark work there? Number one. Yes. Okay, good. What was his title? Does it match what he gave me? Okay, good. What were his dates that he was there? Does that match what he gave me? Now, most importantly, who is his manager? And they might say, well, he reported to Steve. And I go, he told me Bob. And they go, no, he didn't report to Bob. And I go, interesting. Can I talk to Steve, please? Because maybe you report to Steve and he's ops manager, and you're a pain in his butt every single day, and you know he would give you a terrible reference. Bob is the GM, and he's lovely. He's everybody's best friend. So you're like, I'll put Bob down. Bob and I are homies. We have beers on a Friday night. Bob will give me a good reference. So you give me Bob. So that's the first thing. Is that you want to verify the person and verify the manager. So let's say back to my little scenario. So I say, who did Mark report to? And they say, yes, he did report to Bob. Okay, good. What is Bob's mobile number? Does it match the mobile number that Mark gave me? Because maybe you gave me Peter, who sits next to you, and you say, hey, just pretend to be Bob. Because all on the website, it says Bob's the GM. And I'm like, cool. Oh my God, I get to talk to the GM at his company. But actually, it's just Steve pretending to be Bob, because he can speak the language of ABC Bolts and Fasteners. It's like the Art Vandelay episode in Seinfeld. It's like pretend to be Vandelay Industries. So that's the first thing. So once you've verified that you have, because candidates will give you colleagues, they'll give you other managers of other areas, they'll give you whoever. The first reference I ever did was the guy's girlfriend who worked in HR. I learned my lesson immediately. So once you've got a verified manager on the phone, what you need to do is verify the performance claims of the candidate. Remember, Mark told me he sold 100 pairs of shoes every month. And again, we don't feed the answers. So I say, hey, Bob, what was Mark's targets? And he goes, he had to sell 100 pairs of shoes every month. I go, good. What did he achieve? And he goes, on and off. And I go, more on than off? And he goes, probably more off than on. I'm like, interesting. He told me he achieved it every single month. He goes, no, definitely did not.
Yeah.
So that's the process. You need to verify what we think we know about the candidate. is the candidate as special and as amazing as we thought that he was?
Yeah, no, that's incredible insight. And I think most reference checks are done backwards, aren't they? Just they've got those. And once again, they feed the response they want. It's like, oh, yeah, John mentioned, they, are a hard worker. Are they a hard worker? Can you just confirm that? And the person on the other line, doesn't want to like put their colleague under the bus and look like the bad person as well.
Exactly.
So if you ask those open-ended questions, I think, that's incredible.
Exactly.
Yeah, and making sure you get the right person.
Yes, that's the most important thing. And because a lot of people try and give you colleagues and things like that, and you're like, no, I only want managers. And you also want to have somebody doing it that is unbiased. So like for my girls, for example, in my team, they're not allowed to do their own reference checks because you fall in love with candidates. You really want to close the job. The client's really excited. You don't want to let them down. So we have to have a different consultant do the reference check for each other. So you can stay really unbiased, because then you go, oh, how were they at their job? And they go, oh, yeah. And you write, YES, were they good at their job? Yeah. Yes, tick box, move on. When you want someone to go, I can hear hesitation in your voice. What's that hesitation? Like, what are you thinking and not saying? You want to pull those threads.
Yeah, that's such good insight. Like hiring decisions often come down to gut feel. I hear this a lot where someone's the hiring manager speaking to a candidate, and they get off the interview and they're like, oh, I just had a good gut feeling about that person. I don't know what it is, good gut feeling. Like, what's your viewpoint on going off that intuition versus the other aspects of the interview?
It's a very good question. I don't think it accounts for nothing is one thing I will say, but I would be very careful with it, because we've had clients be wrong about their gut feel. Everybody's been wrong. You can think that somebody's, because you might be using something else, like that earlier example where I said, oh, Mark reminds me of Bob. Like maybe they're reminding you of somebody else or something like that. I try to make them be as pragmatic and use as much evidence as you can to make your decisions. But gut instinct, some people do have really good gut instincts. And there are things, you meet someone, you're like, there's just something off about them. And it's the same thing with the personality profile I find enters into it. There's like certain trait combinations that I see where I go, there might be something at play with this person. Like they might be I think you're really going to like them, but I think underneath there's something wrong. And then they meet them and they go, I felt it. And I go, good, let's just stay away from that candidate. Like you can feel things, so it's not worth nothing, but it has to be balanced.
Yeah.
And you need to have the right people involved in the process, because you'll have some people you don't even realize aren't coordinated on what you need and want in a role. And I've had a client who I did the role profile with him. We wrote the ad to enter market, but then he let his HR manager do the interviewing. And I'm like, she doesn't know my process or my ethos or how I look at candidates. And she met this woman. She was a bookkeeper. She's phenomenal. This woman was a 10 out of 10 bulldog, incredible bookkeeper. I loved her. But she was like in her late 50s. She was probably 5 foot tall, a little bit overweight, and she would zoom really close to the camera like that. Not very charismatic. And so the HR manager said, no, thank you. We don't want her. And we backed her and rang the boss and was like, just trust me, hire her. And she was one of his hardest working employees. But it would have been written off because someone had some idea or feeling about them that you're like, well, that's useless. And this is where I struggle if I ever have to work with businesses and the owner or the GM or the founder or whoever is trying to palm me off to a manager. I'm like, no manager will ever think about the hiring of your business like you will. It's your money, it's your culture, it's your reputation. The employees being trusted with something like that, they're more likely to want to go for someone that they like. Whereas you as an owner are like, I don't really care if you like them or not. I want to know, are they good for the business? Are they good for the culture? Are they good for our clients? I need to have the right people making the decisions. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to, I guess, offering these top talents an offer, and a lot of the A players, they've got options, right? They might have interviewed a couple of different places. How do you coach founders and hiring managers to, I guess, win competitive candidates without having to overpay them or overpromise them anything?
Well, interestingly enough, 95% of the candidates that we place are not the most expensive ones. So I think people sometimes think that salary can be an indicator of quality. And they would put off a candidate asked for too low of a salary, and they're like, well, they're not going to be good then. Like, people can make funny ideas, but I think that if you fall into a game with a candidate, a money game with them, then they would just move elsewhere. You need to, I guess my first thing that it comes back to is if you're a business owner and you want good staff, you must be deserving of them. You cannot be, excuse my language, a wanker and then want great staff. Like, it doesn't work that way. Like, you will get, if you're and you treat the hiring process like it's just a number, people do. They just view candidates like it's just a hole filler in your company. I need an admin person, just get one. I don't care. Who's got a pulse? Put them in there. Then that's kind of what you'll get. So I think that you need to make sure that you have an opportunity worth having. You have a team worth being part of. You have a goal worth attaining, and you can give mentorship, opportunity, development, exposure, excitement, and culture to people. And they're the things you should be going to market for. And if somebody is out there just looking for the next, there is also an element of like, yes, you have to have a good fair salary, but I don't think you should overpay necessarily. The payroll is the biggest expense to businesses. It's like, anytime if you're a small business and you start growing your team and you get terrified because you're like, I'm adding to my payroll. This is a big deal. So I don't think you necessarily need to think that you have to, but you know that saying, like, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys? Not true. Tell you it's not true. So yeah, I think you've got to be able to go to market knowing what it is that you have to offer, be able to promote that both in the challenges and the good things, because people love challenges. Performers love challenges. They want to know the impact they can make, the opportunity that they have. And yeah, I don't necessarily think it just comes down to a numbers game. I know a lot of candidates that would move for a dream. Most people would take a pay cut for their dream role. Yes, you have complex factors like cost of living and mortgages and everything. So there is things. If a candidate comes to you and is like, I'm really sorry, I can't take less than 130, I don't necessarily say you should write them off, whatever the number is. But I'm just saying, like, a lot of people want so much more from a job than just the dollar figure. And you should know what those things are. Yeah. And lead with those, not the money.
Yeah. And would you say it's through that entire interview process, from the ad they first saw, through the interview questions, through what you shared, the good and the more challenging aspects of the business and those nuances, do you think that really then determines, like, if they've got options at the end of the interview process, they're deciding out 3 companies.
Yeah.
Do you think that's then what, if they, at the end of that, pay aside, pick your company, then it shows that they were the right fit to begin with?
I agree. Yeah, I do. And when I have a candidate that is like, because often when you've got candidates in front of you and I'm screening for clients, they're like, yeah, I've got other interviews. I always go, okay, aside from the money, which role do you want? And if they said the other company, I'm like, well, then go for that one. Like, that's silly. That's the most important thing that will hold a candidate to you is not the money. It's everything else. And like I saw some statistics somewhere on how's that for a quote? I read some statistics somewhere about something, but about the percentage of candidates. Something like 70% of candidates will leave their manager, not the job. Yeah. It's like you want to have the right management in place, the right executive team in place. You want to have goals, targets. It's about that fit, definitely. Yeah. I think, you don't want a candidate that'll just move for money. That feels very corporate and lifeless to me.
Absolutely. Now, if we just take a quick look into the future, and I know AI is big talk at the moment. Keen to understand, like, from a recruitment perspective, how has AI impacted the whole recruitment space? And what's your, I guess, forecasts and prediction of the future?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I see a lot of AI being pushed for recruitment agencies, and I don't necessarily, aside from being able to get questionnaires out and things like that, I can't see how it would help you unless you are just looking at CVs, which is what I don't suggest. I think the AI for recruitment is incredibly limited because I don't think that AI can determine the value of a person. And I think if you start pivoting to having a hiring structure that relies on what AI thinks of these people, I think you've already lost. It's my opinion. Like, everybody could do whatever they want. I just don't. Maybe AI will start smashing it and every single role they fill is going to be the perfect person and they stay for 5 years. Great. Then use that. Use whatever works. I just don't see how. I feel so bad for the candidates. I see them having AI interviews. Have you seen this? Like, companies will have, they like a fully like online. I think Woolies was doing it. I saw a candidate post about it on Instagram saying like they had it was an online meeting and the interviewer was AI. And they were like, could you imagine how horrible that would be? Yeah. So I think also it's like, what does it say about your company if that's how you view people at that level? Yeah. I don't think there's any shortcuts to hiring is, I guess, my ultimate takeaway is it's a hard thing. It's an art form.
Yeah, agree. I can see like AI will be like an amplifier and maybe help streamline certain aspects of that
Exactly.
recruitment, but not a replacement for that human aspect.
No.
That for good recruitment, as you've just walked us through, you can't have AI do that. Like the thing that AI struggles with, and I can't see anytime soon being able to do well, is understand tonality from a prospect, understand their body language, and all those little human nuances. They
Yeah,
might
which is
be able to,
culture. Is that
yeah,
not culture? Like, if you have a
yeah.
playful culture, how is AI going to know if the person's playful?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll only be able to translate what they said into words and then dissect those words, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, last question. I ask this to all my guests. If you could add one new page to the GTM playbook, a recruiting principle or belief you now stand by after everything you've seen in the whole recruitment space, what would it be and why?
I think it would be as a golden rule is to not conflate that knowledge, the outward persona, or how charming a candidate is, or how well they can sell you in an interview does not determine the person's ability. Like aptitude and attitude is that classic trope. They say hire, fire fast, hire for attitude and aptitude, and bridge that gap. I think they are such golden rules, and I think that is the best thing that you can do for your business. The biggest gift you can give yourself as a business owner is to hire the right team.
So good. So good. Well, thank you so much, Maddie. This has been such an insightful conversation.
Good.
And thank you for being so generous with us, being able to share all those insights and all that experience that you have. So thank you so much. Now, if anyone wants to learn more about Talent X or get in touch, what's the best way they can go about that?
They've got our website, talentx.com.au. I'm also on LinkedIn. Our founder, Marnie, has a brilliant Instagram page. She's doing a lot of cool stuff over there. I think it's Maddie Jones _X. Yeah, but our website's the best. Yeah. And thank you so much, Mark. You're amazing. Love what you're doing. It's awesome. I'm so grateful to have been on your podcast.
Thanks, Maddie. Appreciate it.